You're now listening to Sleep Time's Over.
Sleep time is over, baby.
It was his first IG Live that he ever did. And then it proceeded to be Rick Blangiardi's first IG Live. That was a hoot. Shout out to him being on October 21st. Rick Blangiardi back again. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Why am I wearing a long sleeve shirt? I don't know. And everybody thereafter was just mesmerized of trying to figure out these IG Lives. Like, I've had staff people call me, staff on top of staff, being like, how do we do this? What do we do? Do I call you? Do I email you? No. So it's been a learning experience even for the candidates, trying to be relatable to the audience that is online, which is the common thing now. And got to keep up with the times. So I don't have a towel. See, I forgot a towel. So my face will be shiny very soon. And hopefully I could just do that. Or I could do that. Oh, and it's that time. So here we are. Mr. Keith Amemiya. General election is coming up in November. He's been everywhere on social media. He's been doing yoga, TikToking the night away. He's joining me again. Keith, let's bring him on in as I go close to the screen. I always got to do close to the screen to let him in, right? But then, see, I'm doing that. I want to show my forehead. I'm going to be back there. Sorry. As we wait for Keith, there he is. Here we go. Good evening,
Hi.
sir.
Good. How you doing?
Here we are. Well, the word tonight is lit. Keith, do you know what the word lit means?
I kind of do, but I got to ask my college-age son for the correct definition.
Good call there.
It's supposed to be good. It's supposed to be, it's a good thing, right?
Well, for me, it's hot. It's really humid right now. So I'm using it in a different sense. But yes, thank you for delegating of who to get to answer that question. Hi, how you been, sir? I haven't talked to you since June. So what's been going on? A lot has transpired with you. How are you doing currently with the campaign?
Doing good. I mean, excited, honored to be in the general election.
Congratulations.
It's crunch time. Thank you. And you were one of my first interviews, so I want to thank you for that. I owe my victory to you, and your show.
Wow.
So
well, I thank you very much because I think this was the first IG Live you did was with myself. So, and now you're doing TikToks and now you're doing yoga. Can't keep up with you on the.
I know.
On the IG Lives.
I'm getting out of control, I tell you.
I don't know how you do it. So. Well, I guess let's get right to it because this is a question in everybody's mind, and I want to get your thoughts on this one right off the bat here. Let's go to the economy, sir. And everyone's mind is on this tier system. We got tourism hopefully opening up October 15th. Do you support this current tier? What's the best idea? Was this the best idea to open up and be ready for tourism?
Well, I'm not privy to all the information the mayor had, the current mayor, but I think the tier system is a step in the right direction because it's relying at least there's goals, so to speak. In the prior stay-at-home orders, we kind of didn't know why or how long more, we'd be shut down, why certain businesses were shut down, some weren't. And I'm a firm believer that you need to rely on data and science and the advice of healthcare professionals and best practices in other places that have been able to control the spread of COVID. So that's a start in that there's certain metrics that you need to reach in order to get to the next tier. But I'm not fully understanding of the tier system, to be honest. And then I also think that if we do a good job of curbing the spread of COVID-19, I'm hoping we can skip tiers because, for example, one of many examples, until we reach tier 4, we can't have youth sports. And, because of my sports background, I know a lot of sports is near and dear to my heart. And I know a lot of parents who have kids in youth sports, and it's rough on the kids and the parents, and that and so the earliest they can resume youth sports is mid-December, if I'm not mistaken, if not longer. And so again, now let me make clear, we have to make sure COVID doesn't spread, but I don't know. I just think there's ways we can, work with our healthcare professionals and others and epidemiologists to allow at least some sports to take place, because it's tough to be stuck indoors. People need to. I mean, stuck indoors. It's important for people to be able to go out and exercise and get fresh air and whatnot. So that's my feeling, that it's a step in the right direction in terms of data and whatnot, but it's still a painful process for all of us to go through.
Oh yeah, definitely. Parents going crazy with their kids all the time, right? Schooling at home.
Yeah.
Ever since I guess August, this has come up when I've been talking to people around the town about yourself. What do you say to people calling you Caldwell 2.0 and being a clone of Kirk? What do you have to say about that?
Well, if I can go real quickly back to our COVID discussion,
Sure.
I mean, it goes without saying that first and foremost, we need to get the economy going. Businesses are struggling. A lot of people have still been out of work for months, and so that's our priority: is keep the community healthy and stop businesses. Get businesses reopened so that we can get the economy going. But in terms of your current question, I'm my own person. I've always been my own person. It's not going to be 2.0. It's going to be a much different administration. I'm going to bring new leadership, a fresh perspective, different people into city government. It'll be a blend, I foresee, of some people with experience in city government, because that always helps. But we also need new people and new ideas. I want to bring in younger people into city government as well. And so, that's a argument made against me by my opponents. I guess it sounds good, but it's totally untrue. I've never been one to follow someone else. I've always tried to be innovative, whether running high school sports, which I think we accomplished many creative and innovative ideas during my tenure, and whether it's in the private sector, or even now as mayor, as a candidate. My campaign team and I have proposed a lot of innovative ideas, and that's not going to change when I'm mayor. It's going to be a lot different type of administration and type of leadership.
I guess we got a question in the chat as far as that, maybe the specificity of that is, I guess, look at Caldwell's traits as opposed to yours. Do you see anything off the top of your head where you would see Caldwell on television, for example, or in a press conference, and you'd be like, no, I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't go that route. Or even just the way his talking style, or the way he just, anything comes off the top of the head regarding Kirk?
Not that comes immediately to the top of my head, but again, the COVID-19 response, I just think, communication could have been better, could have been clearer. The use of data and metrics could have been utilized earlier. So that's something that, I think is a little different in terms of style of leadership between the current mayor and myself.
And with the youth movement that you want to put into play for working for you, voter turnout at the primary was great. It was all-time high, and but at the same time, so are people's distrust in government. So how would that, as far, well, the word corruption has been used time and time again for Hawaii politics for years. I've been following politics as a child, and I even heard it at that time. Could you please clarify for us where there's been such distrust, and explain to the people who may not know, like the old boy network, for example. I get that a lot. So if you could go into, why is it been that way, the mindset of we think it's corrupt?
Well, government has given the public some pretty good reasons to think that there's corruption. There actually has been corruption in government over the past several years, but I intend to change that. That's one of the reasons I'm running, is to bring change, to bring a fresh perspective. As I mentioned earlier, I'm a first-time candidate. I've never run for office before. I don't have a personal agenda other than doing what's best for the city and county of Honolulu. And so I'm going to do what I've always done. That's lead with integrity, lead with character, surround myself with the same type of values, surround myself with people who, like me, just care about wanting to improve the city and county of Honolulu, improve the status and situation of working class people. And so, that's going to be my goal. It's important to in terms of rebuilding trust in government is to increase community engagement. I think that's another aspect that's been lost lately. It hasn't been utilized enough and causes distrust in people or the community because they don't feel government is listening. They don't feel
Yeah.
government responsive. They don't feel government is acting in their best interest. And so that's going to be one of my priorities. When I was in charge of high school sports across the state, reaching out to communities, being proactive, listening and learning was very, very important to me. And I'm going to use that same style of leadership of openness and inclusiveness as mayor.
And we're gonna elaborate into that a little bit further, but I gotta go with this. I had mentioned twice from two different people. Your endorsement by the Women's Health Clinic, Planned Parenthood. Being that abortion is always a very sensitive subject, right? And along with the organization, Planned Parenthood itself, I guess, can you elaborate on your stance on abortion and your thoughts on getting endorsed by Planned Parenthood?
So, one misconception about Planned Parenthood is, of course, to be sure, they provide abortion services, but that's only approximately 3% of the overall services they provide. So again, that's a misconception. The primary work they do is to provide health care to women, and whether it's if they're ill or just need counseling services or just need regular checkups. They are an important healthcare provider, especially for low income and disadvantaged women. And so, again, it's a misconception that they're primarily there to deal with and provide abortions. I am pro-choice, but I respect the opinions of those who don't agree with me. And it's a concern and it's an issue in politics for the past several decades. Really, I don't think it's fair or right to judge a candidate on just how he or she stands on one issue. I think it's more important to look at the overall package of the candidate. I also think it's important to look at the intangible qualities of a candidate, someone who can lead, someone you can trust, someone who can work well with others and bring communities together like I've proven that I've been able to in the past. So, I'm just hopeful that, voters don't judge me on just my stance on one particular issue and look at the entire package, so to speak.
As far as that, we're gonna switch gears a little bit. I wanted to do this with you because I really wanted to get your thoughts on, because you have the time to elaborate. That's why I wanted to give you. We're not gonna have any buzzers or dings or time limits.
Right.
I wanted to go into like your first 100 days, come January 2021. Everybody wants to know the plans. Does any politician have plans going into an election, getting elected? So we're gonna go hypothetical. And Keith, you won. You won. You're the mayor, and you're in. This is it, January 2021. And we're gonna go with that route. And you can elaborate as much as you want and get specific as much as you want. All the time you got. What are your plans on whether or not to keep the tier system in place once we get to January? And like we talked about, December, things are going to change. Hopefully bars reopen, youth sports come back. Let's say January, let's go hypothetical, there's 70 cases average a day. We're averaging in Oahu 70 cases a day, like 6% average. We'll go, are you going to keep the tiers in place, or are you going to just come January, do away? What do you think?
Well, again, I would still rely on the advice of healthcare professionals and experts in,
Sure.
in the field of viruses and diseases. And so I think it's a little premature to say if I keep or reject the tier system. But, the priorities for me as mayor on the first day is keeping the communities healthy and revitalizing the economy, because unfortunately COVID-19 is still probably going to be around come January when the next mayor takes office.
Sure.
And so that's going to be my priority. But it's hard, Aaron, to say right now whether or not I'd get rid of the tier system. I would, again, look to the guidance of people who are experts in the field of COVID-19 to tell me whether to go with that or not. I don't know enough, and I wasn't privy to the discussions that led to the formulation of the tier system. So I'd want to learn a little more about how they came up with that.
Right. It's a thing that's baffling to us all. We're all confused by it, and I guess if we look at, hopefully by December, if things go the way they're supposed to go, where the case count is supposed to be under 20 a day, that's the tier 4.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess we're looking at youth sports opening up and things like that at bars. I know with youth sports being very dear to yourself, would you even modify the 20 case based off of just hypothetical,
Yeah. I would definitely look at that because I'm not sure why or how that number came about. And, 20 tests, 20 positive, I mean, that's a function of how many tests you take as well. That's got to come into play. I mean, if you theoretically take no tests today, there's going to be 0 positive tomorrow that's announced, right? So, I mean, my gut tells me that you need to look at other factors instead of just the absolute number of positive cases every day, more the positivity rate, for example, but also the capacity of hospital beds for COVID-related cases as well. That's another factor. You don't want to run out of hospital beds that are utilized to treat people with COVID-19. So I don't fully understand the raw number every day. I know it can be a guideline, but it seems like 20 is a tough number to reach. And don't get me wrong. I mean, everybody who has COVID is in not so good shape, so to speak. And I don't want anyone to have COVID, but there's a balance you have to make, Aaron, between people getting COVID and the need to reopen the economy. I talked about youth sports, but let's talk about bars and restaurants. And I feel that, I hesitate to make a blanket rule, that's imposed on all of them. I believe in enforcement and punishment for bars and restaurants that don't comply with the guidelines. And I don't think it's fair in a lot of cases to punish all bars because some are not following the city guidelines. Bars and restaurants are tough businesses to begin with. The margins are low, and to shut them down for this long a period of time is almost a death sentence for many of our bars and restaurants. And so we need to look at ways to open them. Now, of course, if it's proven that the reopening of them are causing a spike in COVID cases, then yes, we'll have to shut them down. But I'm more interested in looking at a possible case-by-case basis on opening and closing specific bars, as opposed to a blanket approach that's currently taking place.
No, that's big because I think a lot of us are in agreement with the blanket closing needs to go, and we just need to punish the ones that are violating. That at this point we can't blanket close.
Right, well, Aaron, if I can interrupt that. Some of the bars that were punished were shut down for a day. Well, that's not enough. I mean, that's a slap on the wrist. Shut them down for a month. That'll really send a message, that they shouldn't flout the rules. If some bars and bar owners who are, less than or arguably unsavory, they'd be willing to take the risk, frankly, of opening past 10, right? And knowing that, well, I'm going to be shut down for a day, so that's not too bad. I might as well, keep it open a little longer and hope I don't get caught. That's not good.
No, I agree. The blanket closing needs to end, and the punishment needs to be more severe for the violators. Another thing, I get around the town, Keith, and I talk to people. I'm not into the Zoom. I talk safely, but around the town, rail is mentioned. Whenever rail is mentioned, there's lots of rolling of the eyes, throwing their hands up. Will it ever be completed? Tired of the past officials mishandling the whole thing. What will your first plans be to finally put rail in a positive light with the public and move it forward? And just what will be step 1 and step 2 to taking care of this thing that's been years?
Well, to take a more active role in the rail project, technically the mayor is not the final arbiter of rail decisions. That's with heart. But,
Yeah.
the mayor is the number one official of the city. People blame the mayor anyway about rail. So my thinking is I might as well get involved because it has such an impact on city government that I want to be more involved from day one in the rail project. I also want to build a better relationship between the city and Hart. Right now, there's not a good relationship between the mayor and the current CEO of Hart. And I think that is also impacting the relations between the two and moving rail forward. And so whoever the CEO of Hart is at that time, I'm going to make a concerted effort to build a good relationship with that person and do whatever I can to keep the rail project moving forward. It's frustrating to me, Aaron, just like everyone else. It's maddening. It's upsetting. Rail has been bungled pretty much from the planning stages up till now. But we need to finish the project. We've come too far. To stop now is actually worse because so much money and time has been spent. We're almost there. We just need to build the last leg of the rail project. And when done, it's going to provide a boon to transportation on Oahu. It's about transportation equity, especially for those who live in West Oahu, who will now have a safe, fast, efficient, cost-effective way to come into town and to go back home afterwards.
Well, we're all hoping, sir, because it's been years on years and a lot of eye rolling going around the town.
Sure.
Another one. I guess, and this really has gone bigger with the two lockdowns. It made it more visible than ever. Homelessness.
Mm-hmm.
Less people out on the streets, so the only people left are the homeless, and we see it firsthand even more so. How do we first tackle this problem once you get elected?
Well, it's like rail. It's been a source of frustration for people for a long time. And so, that's what leadership is about, political will, bringing people together. And I think that's a big reason why the final two candidates, myself and Rick Blangiardi, are the ones that advance to the general because the public wants change. They feel that the current politicians can't get it done. So, I feel strongly that by being new and not beholden to anybody or having any preconceived notions about how things should be done, I can attack the homelessness problem and be more effective than past administrations. One of the biggest issues about homelessness, and it affects everybody, including those who aren't homeless, is the lack of affordable housing. I mean, we need to build much more affordable housing here on Oahu. I have a detailed plan to crack that nut and build much more affordable housing over the past, for the upcoming several years through a Housing for All plan that details how we're going to address the 22,000 unit shortage of housing on Oahu. But, that's a big reason we have homeless is the lack of affordable housing. People just can't afford to pay for a roof over their heads. We don't see a lot of those people, but they're there. They live in their cars. They live in the parks. They live in tents. Now, let's get to the people that we see most often out in the streets. Those are people suffering from substance abuse issues or mental health issues or both. For the past several decades, services to help those people who have substance abuse issues and or mental health issues have dropped dramatically. We need to restore investment in treatment services for those two areas. And in the long run, it's going to save us money. I truly believe that if we address those problems, we're going to save it in many other ways, including the skyrocketing medical costs that are incurred with homeless people going to the emergency rooms and hospitals constantly being transported there by ambulance. The thousands and thousands and thousands of hours that police officers have to deal with homeless people and their various situations. So we need to make that investment or reinvest in treatment services for those who need it most on the streets.
Right, it's a prevalent problem. A lot of people always stereotypically think of downtown or Kaka'ako, where the homeless population. We can't forget the West Side. We
I was
can't
just
forget
gonna
North
say,
Shore. It's island wide, and it needs to be finally addressed, especially now.
Kaneohe, I mean, everywhere.
Yeah,
Waimanalo, it's
Central,
everywhere.
everywhere. It's everywhere.
And
Yeah,
as part of my campaign, I've visited a lot of these areas. I've met with homeless or houseless advocates, and so I'm going to also rely on forging or continuing to have more partnerships with community groups, nonprofits, state government to address the homelessness problem. Whether it's Twinkle Borges Pu'u Honua o Waianae project or village, if you will, on the Waianae coast. She successfully helped homeless people get on their feet and get off the street, so to speak. The Kahawiki Village project I was quite heavily involved in before I started my mayoral campaign. That project is in the Ke'ihi Lagoon area, and it now houses 600 previously homeless people in 144 units, including 300 children who are homeless. So we just need to forge more partnerships because the city can't do it alone. No one entity can do it alone.
definitely that's the case. On to viewer questions, and there's a lot of them. Get
Okay.
ready.
All right.
Let's go with the first one. This another heavy hitter. How are you going to support local businesses during this crisis? I guess we look at just what's been happening currently and future.
So, the city received about $387 million in CARES Act funding from the federal government to provide COVID-related relief to families and businesses, small businesses in particular. The city needs to distribute that money and get it in the hands of small businesses much faster. $60 million has already been distributed to small businesses on Oahu to help them through this crisis. The current mayor, announced about 2 weeks ago $75 million more to small businesses. So that money needs to get in their hands as soon as possible. In terms of future stay-at-home orders, I didn't like the fact that a lot of small businesses were shut down during the most recent second stay-at-home order, while big box retailers from the mainland were allowed to remain open. I didn't think that was fair. I think we should have allowed our small businesses to stay open with the appropriate social distancing guidelines, of course. But the second shutdown was the straw that broke the camel's back for a lot of small businesses, or close to. And so I don't want to see a third shutdown. So going back to how we can help them, allow them to stay open with certain guidelines, get the federal stimulus money into their hands. And then third, the city can also provide for restaurants, for example. In order to increase their capacity, they're allowing certain restaurants to have open seating outdoors on sidewalks that are wide enough. Or if there's city properties next to these restaurants, allowing them to have seating on city properties outdoors. Anything that the city can do to help these businesses, I'm willing to help them out as much as I can. There's other ways the city can help with workforce development programs. A lot of people in the tourism industry, Aaron, are not going to get their jobs back anytime soon, if not ever. And so they need to we need to help them look at different careers in different industries. And there's CARES Act money to help the city provide different skill sets and retraining for people like those in the tourism industry that just aren't going to get their jobs back.
Right, it's devastating what's going on there, and hopefully things pick up this month. Another viewer question. Well, this is an interesting one. A lot of people think of the mayor as the cleanup guy of the city. Bulk pickup. Do you plan on going back to the schedule system because the appointment system isn't working? Countless times they do not come on the day of the appointment, and there's stuff everywhere on the streets, everywhere. How do we go back to the old or stay with the schedule?
So, I'm going to think about this carefully. So, Aaron, most of your viewers are younger than me. You're younger than me. I remember when there was no bulky item pickup at all. And
Right.
we made do with that. We if you had a pickup truck, you threw all your bulky items in the back of the truck and then went to Kapa'a Quarry or somewhere else, and you dumped your bulky items, at the appropriate place. And it worked out fine. What I don't like about the current bulky item system, whether it's by appointment or a prescribed day of the month, is that people are abusing the system. Either way. Now, I think the appointment system has actually gotten worse by most accounts.
Yes, it has.
But
Yeah.
what I don't like is, we as citizens have to do our job and not just so. There's fault on the city's part by not picking up the bulky items on the appointed day, but there's also a lot of people who are just abusing the system and throwing out their stuff on the sidewalk or
Right.
on curbside whenever they want. So we all need to do our part. I get upset seeing all these piles of trash when you drive by certain neighborhoods, and so again. I don't want to lose votes by saying I want to eliminate bulky item trash, but pickup. But I'm telling you, Aaron, when we didn't have that service, the curbside and sidewalks in our residential neighborhoods were a lot nicer looking. I'll tell you that.
Right.
They were less unsightly, so to speak.
Yeah.
So, let me final point on my end about bulky item appointment. The law is still, or the new system is still fairly new. I think it's only a little over a year, maybe 2 years old maximum, this appointment system. I would be interested in seeing the statistics and getting feedback from the city workers who deal with bulky item pickup, but also the community as well, as to what they think will make the bulky item pickup more efficient.
Yeah, that needs to be community addressed, because at this point, the mindset, the generation's changed, and it's everywhere. Here's another one. As far as your question, this is pretty straight up question here. Do you believe racism exists in Hawaii?
Yes, I do. It might not be as overt and prevalent as in other cities across the country, but I mean, it's there. I mean, we don't like to admit that, but it's there. We can't let our guard down. We're lucky that overall, our situation, I feel, is better than in most places around the country. We're very multicultural, multi-ethnic, and for the most part, we get along. But it would be naive for anyone in Hawaii to say that racism doesn't exist. It exists. We need to remain vigilant. We need to continually educate people, whether it's the general public or our younger people, about the problem of racism in Hawaii. And so we need to be vigilant. That's all I can say. That we would be naive to say it doesn't exist. And in terms of city government, that's going to be one of my priorities, to make sure that we treat everyone equally wherever possible, or at all times, frankly, whether it's in the police department, fire department, or in the Department of Planning and Permitting. Racism won't be tolerated. We need to train people in terms of implicit bias training, for example, and overt racism. But it's there, and it's a problem, and it needs to be addressed.
Right. Communication is always going to be key. Conversation is key. How do you plan on providing extra services with things like youth commissions with limited funding? Another viewer question.
Okay. You made me think. I'm going to back up to the last question about racism.
Oh, sure.
There's no one magic potion that will eliminate it, but in terms of city government and my administration, I'm going to create as diverse a team as possible, whether it's age, ethnicity, communities, where they come from, all of that. I think the more you're diverse in your administration, and that it reflects the community that you serve, that goes a long way in sending a message that you believe in diversity and equality. You don't favor any one group or another. So that's going to be a priority of mine as mayor. My campaign team reflects that. in terms of age and ethnic diversity, even LGBTQ,
Right.
you know, or identity, so to speak. So I'm going to continue to walk the walk, so to speak, as mayor. In terms of your question, elaborate again for me.
Oh, I'm
Aaron.
sorry. Yeah, yeah. Your question: how do you plan on providing extra services with things like
Oh,
youth commissions with limited funding that we have currently, or
okay.
when you take over?
Yeah, that's a good question. And so entities like the youth commissions shouldn't cost too much money. I mean, it's more getting a consortium of youth together and convene them and have them meet, several times a year to discuss issues facing youth and discuss ways that the city can help them. So it shouldn't be a high expense to convene the youth commission. They're more a think tank or a group to help me learn the issues as mayor that concerns our younger groups. In terms of funding for some of their initiatives, there's city grants that are available. There's federal grants that are sometimes available for youth-related causes. And I would also look at nonprofits or foundations that focus on youth that have funds available so that city resources aren't used.
I'm going to pause a little bit because I know you're trying to keep up with the chat, which is always great. So just before I ask the next question, because I know you elaborated on the past few here, so I'm a little pause.
Sure.
So as I keep it going, I got a lot of them. And this is, I guess, a question that we asked earlier, but for the people that just joined, I guess we can elaborate on this one again. We got the time to do so. How will you address the current tier system devastating many local businesses once you take office? You talked about this earlier. You can reiterate what you mentioned.
Yeah, I'll reiterate what I said earlier. I want to understand more how the tier system came about. I want to base my decisions on science, on data, on the advice of medical professionals and best practices in other areas.
Oh, he froze. Okay, he's back.
So I just
that was it. Cut him off, Keith.
I did. I'll call.
All right,
I'll
good.
call you back later.
Nobody should be calling you right now. Come on.
So,
yeah.
but as we mentioned earlier when we talked about the tier system, I want to understand it more. But I'm hoping there's a way to not have to go through every single tier before youth sports, for example, can be restarted or bars can reopen. If we keep the COVID count down low enough, if we provide enough safeguards, if we have enough enforcement and penalties for those who violate the rules, I really think that we need to allow youth sports to continue or resume and also bars to reopen sooner as well. And even fitness centers, for that matter, I know are suffering during this pandemic.
Yes.
So if there's a way to, satisfy the safety and health concerns and allow those places to reopen, at least on a modified basis, maybe, I'm just thinking out loud about a fitness center. Yeah, you probably shouldn't allow them to open at full capacity. Everyone should be wearing masks. You should improve the circulation or ventilation.
Right.
But, there's got to be a way to try to meet these entities halfway because they're suffering, and I'm worried that too many businesses are going to close the longer this pandemic and restrictions are in place.
Right. Yeah, and that's what you mentioned earlier. Another viewer question, and this is going to be another sensitive one, is it's something that's not really talked about in the media, local media. The issue of sex trafficking in Oahu and in the state of Hawaii. What can the mayor do to really tackle that issue that is a very sensitive one that is not brought up a lot?
I would rely on the advice and guidance of people who are better versed than I in the sex trafficking industry. I know there's several nonprofits in Hawaii that so-called specialize in that area, so I would want to talk to them. Obviously, I would need to consult with HPD, law enforcement, and then even on the federal level, law enforcement, whether it's the Homeland Security or the Immigration, Naturalization, INS, who deal with the sex trafficking on an international basis, or between here and the mainland and vice versa. So it's an issue of concern to many people. It's obviously a very tragic, terrible issue. So I'm committed to addressing it as best I can as mayor.
It's a big one that comes up in discussion a lot. So that would be definitely something to look at. Here's another one involving UH. What is your view on the University of Hawaii's role in diversifying the economy?
Their
what
potential,
can UH do?
it's huge. A lot of thriving cities have a thriving university system, and the University of Hawaii has done great things, but I think its potential is vast and can do even more. They can be the leaders in certain industries like agriculture and aquaculture. They are a source of creating jobs, of educating and developing our workforce, of broadening our industries here in Hawaii, whether it's, again, agriculture, aquaculture, marine biology, and the like. I've just seen the success of universities in other cities that really are like an industry in and of itself, just like tourism or agriculture. And so I think the University of Hawaii has vast potential to diversify our economy and improve it.
Another one, they just keep flying in here. I'm going to pause again, Keith, just in case.
Yeah.
I'm just going to do these pauses. Viewer question again here. We addressed this the first time you were on. I guess we can elaborate into this one again. With a nation divided and party lines drawn, do you think it was a wise decision to announce that you are a Democrat in a nonpartisan race?
The reason I did that was because I was asked all the time, even though it's nonpartisan in Hawaii, party affiliation matters. And so I thought I'd just be upfront and answer the question and tell them that, yes, I am a Democrat, and I believe in a lot of the values of Democrats, in terms of equality, fighting injustice, making sure people have a livable wage and adequate benefits and the like. And so it was pretty simple. That's the reason I did that. But that's not to say that if I'm elected mayor, I'm going to just cater to Democrats. I mean, I'm obligated to help everybody. And what's interesting, Aaron? I mean, I have a fair amount of Republican friends of mine who are members of the Republican Party who are supporting me in this election. And kind of what we talked about is we'll agree to disagree on certain issues, mainly on the federal level, but we're all united in wanting to improve the island that we live on, and want to work together on city-related issues. They don't necessarily have to be partisan, and so that's my commitment to everyone, that I'm not going to draw a hard and fast line and only take care of Democrats. I mean, that's clearly not going to be the case. I'm going to represent everybody and fight for everybody just as hard, whether you're a Democrat or a Republican.
Another one coming in here, and for the people that just joined, we covered this one earlier. I guess we can elaborate again. Is what is your take on the Old Boy Network? Can you explain to us, for the people that do not know, what that term represents, especially for people living here who hear that a lot?
Well, I mean, my definition of the Old Boy Network is the people who have been in power too long, people who are just interested in taking care of themselves, who are not interested in change. They're not interested in developing the next generation and making their quality of life better, and who are exclusive and not inclusive, are not open-minded, and don't seek to broaden the tent, so to speak, and invite everybody to the party. I think, frankly, that's a big reason we're in the predicament we are in, both locally and nationally. Even on the national level, whether you're a Democrat or a Republican, I mean, there's always in both parties, in my opinion, on the national level. And so, that's a big reason I'm running, that I've been concerned and dissatisfied, as many of your viewers are, that the same old politicians weren't getting the job done for us, and that's why we need new politicians. And it's my commitment to be inclusive, like I have been throughout my career, to be open-minded, and to just act in the best interests of the community at large, and not care about my own personal self-interest.
It's a common thing brought up a lot, and through the years it's increased. Well, I made this my last question, but you never know with this chat, so I'm just gonna go with this. This was my final question to you, sir. As the younger population continues to struggle currently with lack of unemployment benefits, coinciding with rising costs of living, more and more local people and people here in general are deciding to leave the state. How would you convince that person watching right now to stay on island?
That to don't lose hope, that they need to get involved and vote. If we collectively exercise our right to vote, which hasn't happened in the past, you can vote out the old boy network. You can affect change. You can affect change by also participating in community, affairs. And so, I'm the mayor that's going to include you. I'm the mayor that's going to fight for you and work with you. My wife and I have a college-age son. We're concerned about his future. We want him, when he graduates from college on the mainland, he's going to, we want him to have a fighting chance to come back and get a paying job that will help him, survive, and if not thrive. And, I'm the only candidate that has worked in the communities throughout my career. I've understand their issues. I know who the leaders are in every community. I'll continue to do that as mayor, is fight for them, work with them, and do whatever I can to keep Hawaii, or keep Oahu, the great city that it is. It has its challenges, but there's no other place in the world that I'd rather live. I'm sure you feel the same way, Aaron. And so I'm committed to making sure that those who want to leave don't leave, and that again, we need to stay together. We need to vote and keep fighting, because young people in particular have proven, whether they've taken up causes in their communities or on a broader scale, they can affect change, and they will with me as their mayor.
Keith, we got 45 seconds remaining. IG sucks. So I just want to say thank you very much for joining me again. You got several weeks to go with the general election, and we'll just see where it goes. A lot more still to come. And thank you very much. Thank you for addressing all of the questions. There was a lot of questions. Thank you to the live chat. That's always fun.
Yeah.
Thank you all that question. Thank you all for the viewer questions. Keith, good luck to you, sir, and great times as always.
Thanks.
Good
Thanks
night,
for
sir.
the opportunity. All right.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Good night.